I think that they had initiated two 911 calls. They just would have relaxed and let the proper authorities come and take care of the issue. Ahmaud I know he would be still alive today.
Tomorrow, a huge day down in Glynn County, Georgia, the case of Ahmaud Arbery's death. You've got 3 men charged with felony murder. Tomorrow, the preliminary hearing is scheduled. Ted Rollins joins us from Glynn County tonight. Ted, let me start with the logistics. We've got a preliminary hearing in a courtroom in the middle of a pandemic. We've got everything else going on. Logistically, how are they going to do this hearing tomorrow?
Well, they just wrapped up about 15 minutes ago, Vinny. A lot of city leaders came out. It was twofold. One, an informational sort of press conference to talk about the logistics, and they are as follows. Social distancing will be adhered to. So inside the courtroom, it'll be open, but there will be social distancing parameters involved, 6 feet away, meaning there won't be enough space in the courtroom for everybody in this community and everybody in the media that wants to be in the courtroom. So they do have an overflow room. We've seen this many other times where there'll be journalists placed in the overflow room, and they will live stream it. They'll live stream it to the community and to people around the country that want to watch it. And they acknowledge that there is a tremendous amount of interest in everything around this case. They know people want to watch it. They're asking people to watch it via the live stream, which will be on the county's Facebook page.
All right, Ted, how about masks? I mean, when we saw Lori Valadaybell in court, everyone was wearing a mask. Any indication that everyone in the courtroom is going to be wearing a mask during this preliminary tomorrow? Because this is important. We're going to talk about evidence. We're going to talk about body language. I mean, there's a lot of different aspects to all of this.
Yeah, and there's presumably going to be a witness or two. So the answer to your question on masks is it's unclear whether witnesses will be they'll be wearing masks, but whether while they're testifying, be able to bring them down. Because to your point, it's important. What they say is important. How they say it is important. Everybody in the courtroom will be wearing masks, but the crucial question is, will witnesses have masks on? Yes, they'll have them on, but whether or not they'll be able to pull them down, it sounds like they will be able to pull them down to respond to questions during the proceedings.
All right, there are 3 different defendants here. Are all 3 going to be tried in this preliminary hearing all at the same time? So are we going to have 3 sets of lawyers, 3 sets of defendants, asking 3 sets of questions throughout, spread out, socially distanced throughout the courtroom?
That's what we understand, and it's going to be interesting to see the logistics because of the amount of defendants, right? There's 3 defendants, but then there's also 3 attorneys. So right now, the McMichaels, Travis, and his father, Greg McMichael, will be there along with William Roddy Bryant and their attorneys, all 3 of them going through this initial stage. Now, clearly, we anticipate that at some point there'll be a motion by the defense to sever, but at this point, they'll all be together in this preliminary hearing. We're also expecting bail to be brought up as a subject. They're all being held on no bail, and we do know, especially from Roddy Bryant's attorney, who has been filing motions like crazy. In fact, he says he's going to file one every day. He filed a few more today. We just got these from the courthouse. In fact, the clerk inside the courthouse said, oh yes, he files them pretty much every day. They're used to seeing him come in. So his defense is so aggressive, and it'll be interesting if his client, Roddy Bryant, is granted bail. Will that change? Because right now he's saying, I want him out. Let's go to trial. We'll take the first 12 jurors. Let's go. Might be a different story if indeed this judge grants bail that Roddy Bryant can make.
Okay, so now let's talk about how exactly this is going to go. Like, what type of evidence are we expecting? What type of witnesses? And are the videos that the public has not seen yet going to be revealed at this preliminary hearing?
That's a great question. We are expecting sheriff investigators, police, law enforcement types, which is typical in a preliminary hearing, also potentially hearing from family members. And that would come in definitely on the bail hearing side of it, possibly. We have to wait and see, but we do know we're going to see law enforcement. We may see more video evidence. But as you know, Vinny, a preliminary hearing, the bar is not that high. The video evidence that we've already all seen likely would be enough to hold them over for trial. If we do see that other evidence, you would think possibly it comes from the other side, right? It comes from the defense arguing that there's more to this story. We'll have to wait and see.
Well, I don't know if that video is enough to hold Roddy Bryan. I mean, because we only see his video from his perspective for a short amount of time. I mean, I think most people are really concerned and wondering about what was this entire chase like. And I'm wondering if that's what we may see. And do we have any idea how many videos are out there?
We don't, but both sides, in terms of the McMichaels and Roddy Bryan side, they seem to have indicated that there is more video. So what that video shows, who it helps, we don't know, and whether that will surface tomorrow. But to your point, yeah, Roddy Bryan is sort of the X factor here. What really was his role? What did he say to police as well that might come out tomorrow that incriminates him on the back end in terms of being with the McMichaels during this chase when they were basically hurting this young man as he walked and jogged through their neighborhood? I think that's going to be a key part of the evidence presented by the state and a key part of what the judge is going to mull over when he makes this decision on whether or not these three should be held over for trial.
All right, let's talk about the scene down there. Things look a little quiet behind you right now, obviously, but tomorrow's going to be a whole different situation. We know what's taking place around the nation. What preparations have the folks down in Glynn County taken for what's going to happen tomorrow? Because there's going to be a lot of people there, and there's going to be a lot of focus on what's happening at that courthouse tomorrow.
And a lot of emotions, Vinny. So, yeah, there's a real concern, and we actually just saw a very large meeting break up with law enforcement representatives from the GBI, the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, local sheriffs, police officers, all came out of the courthouse. They're having presumably a strategy session for tomorrow. The sheriff came out and then did address the media talking about what is in place. And the concern here, of course, is from outsiders coming in and possibly causing some sort of problem. But we had faith leaders here, local politicians out here on the courthouse steps just within the last hour. Everybody seems to be united, at least in this community, in this county. So where it is located, what else is going on around the country, I don't know if there's going to be a lot of trouble here. It sure doesn't seem like it right now. If there is, though, the locals are ready.
All right, Ted Rollins reporting for us from Glynn County, where it all happens, 9 a.m. tomorrow morning. Of course, you'll see and hear everything right here on Court TV. Your front row seat to justice. We'll give you a front row seat for the hearing of the three men accused in the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. When we come back, more to talk about here, because tomorrow, as I said, huge day. You've got three defendants. Is there any chance that any one of them could be set free tomorrow? We'll talk about that and still ahead.
Scott Peterson makes his arguments for a new trial, but does anyone really believe the cheating manure salesman was framed for double murder? And new body cam released in Baltimore as police strike back at a woman who hit an officer.
Don't rush to judgment. We will be presenting our evidence in a court of law, whether it's in Glynn County or someplace else. The government will have an opportunity to present its evidence in a court of law, and then, and only then you can judge.
And some of that evidence will be in a court of law tomorrow. The preliminary hearing for Travis and Greg McMichaels, as well as for Roddy Bryan. It's all happening tomorrow here live on Court TV. You'll see it at 9 a.m. Tomorrow. Now, some of the evidence in this case has come out already because we've seen some videotapes, we've got police reports, we know statements that were made. Ted Rowlands put all that together to try to track the steps and the final steps of Ahmaud Arbery before he was shot and killed.
Police reports, 911 calls, and video help piece together some of what happened in the moments leading up to the fatal shooting of Ahmaud Arbery on the afternoon of February 23rd. Footage secured by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution offers a view from 219 Satilla Drive near the city of Brunswick, Georgia. It is recording when Arbery is first walking up the street around 1 p.m. He walks into the yard at 220 Satilla, a house under construction across the street. At 1:08 p.m., security cameras capture Arbery walking around inside the house under construction. Then a neighbor walking on Jones Road towards Satilla sees him and calls 911.
Okay. Breakers out here. There's a guy in the house right now. It's a house under construction.
Okay, do you have your address or that house's address?
Right at 219 or 220 Satilla Drive. And he's been caught on the camera a bunch before at night. Kind of an ongoing thing out here.
And you said it was a male in a black t-shirt?
A white t-shirt. Black guy, white t-shirt.
Several times before February 23rd, trespassers were caught on camera at the same construction site. And on 4 occasions, a man resembling Arbery is seen walking around. The site's owner says nothing was ever damaged or stolen, including the afternoon of February 23rd. On the afternoon of the shooting, Arbery remained in the house about 4 minutes. He then leaves and runs off.
And he's running right now. There he goes right now.
Okay, what is he doing?
He's running down the street.
Travis McMichael lives at 230 Satilla Street. At 1:10 p.m., he and his father Gregory grab their guns, jump into a white pickup truck, and pursue Arbery. There's no video at this point showing what happens in the next 3 minutes, but we do have a version of events from police statements taken from Gregory McMichael and witness Roddy Bryant. According to those statements, the McMichaels follow Arbery onto Burford Road. Passing Roddy Bryant's house, he sees the pursuit and joins in. The McMichaels try to cut Arbery off, but he doubles back and passes them. Bryan tries to block Arbery, but Arbery passes him as well and runs towards Holmes Road. Gregory McMichael told police he jumped into the bed of the truck armed with a handgun as his son Travis continued to drive to Holmes Road. At one point, the pursuit continues back up Holmes Road. At 1:14, Roddy Bryant is recording Arbery as he runs away from him and towards the McMichaels' truck. What happens next are the final moments of Arbery's life. Just before that, Gregory McMichael calls 911.
911, what's the address of emergency?
I'm out here at Satilla Shores. There's a black male running down the street.
Satilla, where at Satilla Shores?
I don't know what street we're on. Stop, watch that! Is it? Stop! Travis!
Sir, hello, sir. Sir, where you at?
Part of the evidence in the case, probably the most important piece of evidence, but there's going to be more, and it's all going to be part of the preliminary hearing tomorrow. Let's bring back in our guests still with us, Marsha Mignot and Brian Watkins, two incredible attorneys, know this stuff inside out. Marsha, this is taking place down in Georgia. Prosecutor's best friend in Georgia is the felony murder law, and here the underlying felony for the McMichaels is going to be the assault. Your thoughts about the logistics tomorrow in terms of all three are going to be tried at the same time, purportedly. Are they all the same? Are they all wrapped up the same? Or is Roddy Bryant in a different boat here?
Well, based on just the video that you just showed a few seconds ago, it's not going to be that difficult for prosecution to handle the preliminary hearing tomorrow with all three defendants because they all three played a role. In fact, in my opinion, it's the state's advantage to have three of them at the preliminary hearing because it shows what role they all played on that day as it pertains to trying to trap the alleged victim in this case. Now, preliminary hearings is only for the court to determine whether there's probable cause to charge you or to bind the case over with the charges to Superior Court for the charges that you've been charged with. So I always explain to clients that preliminary hearing is a very light burden on the state's part. This is not the beyond the reasonable doubt level. This is just, do we have probable cause to have arrested you for what you've been arrested and charged with? And under these circumstances, I believe the state's going to be able to do that, and the case is going to be bound over to Superior Court tomorrow for all three defendants.
Brian, I think this is something that's going to be fought by the defense. They're going to fight hard tomorrow, as they will throughout this case. But I think what they're attempting to do is to get these men out on bond. Or perhaps in the case of Roddy Bryan, his attorney doesn't think the state can even get over this hurdle of probable cause for his client. How do you think it's going to play out? Do you think the defense is really going to be on the attack? Will they try to produce some of their own evidence? What exactly do you think is going to happen in that courtroom tomorrow?
Well, as a criminal defense attorney, we don't like to show our cards at the preliminary hearing, because if we present a case and the prosecution presents a case, that makes it a triable issue, and the court says, okay, you presented facts, prosecution, defense, you presented some facts. As to what facts are true, that is what a jury is for, and your case gets bound over for trial. This is a hearing to determine whether or not the case should proceed to trial, and that presents a case that should proceed to trial when you have conflicting facts. So what is the prosecution going to do? Clearly, they're going to get a bind over. Why? Because this was a homicide. Self-defense is an affirmative defense, which means then it puts the burden on the defense to justify the homicide by saying, I did this in self-defense. That's something that they should reserve for a trial, not wasted at a preliminary hearing. And the problem that they're going to have is once you're bound over and the court says, yes, I've made a probable cause determination that there is sufficient evidence for you to stand trial for these charges, that actually can cause your bail to go up, not go down. So, of course, if they win the preliminary hearing, they're not bound over, they're released. And if they get bound over, their bail could go up. I've never seen a case where you get bound over and then your bail goes down.
Marcia, is there any chance that any one of these three men could be set free tomorrow? And specifically, let's talk about Roddy Bryan, because his attorney's been very aggressive, filing a motion, at least one motion every day, has come out and spoken publicly saying, we're ready to try this case on July 4th.
Well, one of the motions, to answer your question first, is no, I don't believe anybody is getting released tomorrow, including Mr. Bryan. And I've looked at one of the motions filed by his attorney, which is a motion for relief from prejudicial and inflammatory statements made by individuals purporting to speak for the victim and his or her family. That motion is a motion that the judge can never grant because the judge does not have jurisdiction over non-parties. So he's asking the judge to pretty much issue a gag order against the family of the alleged victim, and also against anybody purporting to represent in making statements against them. Court can't do that. So that motion I expect to be denied. Whether or not his client's going to be released or not, if I'm a betting woman, that answer is also no, based on whatever background evidence that the state may have, either cell phone or text messages or some type of communication with the other defendants, the Michael defendants, that shows that he participated actively in trying to trap the alleged victim, Mr. Arbery, in this case. No, nobody's going home tomorrow. Everybody's getting bound over.
All right, Marcia Mignot, Brian Watkins, always great to have you on the program. Really appreciate your insight, your expertise. You guys know exactly what you're talking about. That's why we have you on.